Hey everybody, welcome to round 4 of the adult section of the Washington Open. And at this point I have 2 points, and one other person has the same score, two points, and I have 2 points. And I reasoned that if I can win my next game, I'll tie for first, which wouldn't be a bad thing. And I am paired against an unrated player. He's an adult, but with unrateds, you just don't know what you're facing. You could be having someone who hasn't played chess in a long time, and they're furiously studying, and they're maybe 2,000 strength that haven't played, or someone who is a true unrated, 1,200, 1,300, who knows. So I start the game with the white pieces, and I begin, my traditional e4, right? And he plays e5, and I play the King's Gambit. I always often play against, e5 response. He captures, knight f3, g5. All this is theory. So he has some training, right? Usually people who have no knowledge would play some random move, but I think he knows what he's doing. And I play the Quade variation, which is knight c3. For those of you who have any familiarity with the King's Gambit, h4 is very typical. It's not wrong. This is a sideline. It's just less theoretical and a little easier to play. Okay, so he plays an odd move, g4. This is all book. Knight e5, queen check, g3, takes. I take on g4. Now, a mistake for him right now is to play g2, which loses, believe it or not. That's a question mark. I would take, he takes in queens, queen h5, and I'm just winning. He could defend the mate only move, d4, and this just gets to be a mess very, very quickly. He's just in deep trouble. But after queen takes g4, knight takes, it's just a game, right? He takes on h2, which is correct, and so far he's playing fine. But look at this position. Good luck searching the database for a position like this. I just don't think it exists. So anyway, I think about this for a while. There are several moves I can play. The simplest is just taking the pawn on h2 with the knight. But I figure, you know what, let's threaten something. Let's do knight d5. Right? Threaten c7, fork. Always good to have a move like that. So he plays a strange f5, which is very weakening. You can just see the diagonals are weak here around the king. These squares are weak. And all his queenside pieces are idle, which is a little odd. So I think about this for a while and decide just to take the h2 pawn with the knight. Just do that, and I'll deal with consequences later. He still has the same threat to deal with, right, on c7. So he addresses it a little different. He plays bishop d6, which is a move, for sure. And here is where I really go into a think here. The engine, for some reason, really wants me to play b3. And it's an interesting idea. So b3 with the intention of getting bishop b2 and getting on this long diagonal. Not a bad idea. I didn't consider it. Never considered it. Instead, I took the f5 pawn, which is kind of dubious. I don't think it's terrible, but it's not consistent with good development principles. And you see where I'm falling into this trap that a lot of amateurs do, and that is, being a little greedy, grabbing pieces, grabbing material, and instead I should calmly be developing. The quicker I can bring pieces into the equation, the faster I'm going to win. Okay, his next move, he's got to get development going. And he makes another weird move. He checks me on g3, which, is fine, but in a way it sort of helps me. I just move out of the way. King f1. King d1. And, his bishop is now in a weird place. So now I'm just waiting for him to see what he's going to do. He plays c6. Not a bad move. He's still, c7 is still covered by his bishop. And then I just say, okay, knight e3. I'm going to protect the pawn and try to focus on development where possible, which I think is a good idea. Okay, he plays knight f6. Finally, he's developing. And I see what he's trying to do. He's probably going to try something like knight e4 to here and, hitting the, the king and rook. So I stopped that with bishop g2. It's a developing move anyway, but just to prevent any nonsense. I think a better move would probably be d4, just to kind of open up my diagonal from my dark squared bishop. And even if he plays knight e4, it's no threat. I can do one of several moves. I could go here, and nothing to really worry about. Development is critical. So bishop g2. He plays then d5. I got to be careful that he doesn't play d4, so I play d4. And suddenly I've kind of thrown away my advantage. I realized that I think my maneuvers have not been very smart. He has h5 now coming, which I have not really saw. I mean, this is a runner. This pawn is just going to run down the board, and I can't, I can stop it, but it's a little bit of a challenge. Fortunate for me, he doesn't do that. He kind of blunders himself. He plays knight e4. Again, trying to go for that fork, but this is losing here. I mean, it's one move. All his pieces on the queen side are just completely idle. But up until this point, right here, h5 is the move to try and get an advantage, right? Or bishop f4, something like that. But knight e4, with all those pieces idle, I just take it. Takes back, and that pawn is just terribly, terribly weak. So the game lasts a little longer. I just play knight h g4, again hitting the king with the fork. I'm also hitting the h7 pawn. There's a lot of threats. He sees it. Good for him. He moves the king up. I feel it's time to do a little development, so I play bishop d2, although knight e5 is perfectly acceptable, but I'm forcing myself to develop. I don't want to leave these pieces idle anymore. So bishop d2. And now he starts moving, as he should, knight d7. Okay, now I'm trying to get my pieces kind of airborne, and get my planes off the ground, or my pieces mobile, my workforce in the game here. I play king e2 to make room for the a rook. He plays b6, and I think he's just trying to get a cheap, check or something. Which is that really a threat? I mean, not really. He's just trying to hit me on the long diagonal like this. I mean, okay, that's not wrong. It's just I don't know what the overall plan is. You have to be a little more thoughtful than just giving the king checks. So I play c4 just to prevent it and gain some space as well. And then he plays the weird knight f6. I think he's trying to trade, but also to protect that e4 pawn. But I should have just taken it. And after takes, rook ag1, I am just all over him. He has no moves. I mean, he is just completely busted. All my pieces are coming to bear on this king, and there's very little he can do about it. And that g3 bishop, again, that silly check I told you about, it didn't do anything, and now it's a liability. Right? Even if he retreats way back here, let's just say, I'm coming with this bishop c3. It's just a mess. I mean, I'm on this long diagonal with the king and the rook here, and I have knight check as well if he tries to interpose the bishop later. Anyway, it's just a bloodbath. So I do knight e5 instead. Not very precise, but I'm just greedy to win the c6 pawn. Also winning, just not as clean. Goes back. I take the pawn. He tries to. Unfortunately, goes back and walks into another shot, which is again knight e5 check with tempo. If he tries to take my knight, I'm very happy to allow that. I mean, look at this, passers, and it's over. I mean, these passers are going to roll. I'm going to bring rook to the file. It's just a mess. So he then plays king e7, and really the final move of the game was just knight g6 check, and he resigned. And oddly enough, that's not the strongest move. I mean, it's still winning, but the best move is still rook ag1. Oddly enough, I mean, why would an engine recommend that? No, it's just a stronger move. Even though I'm winning the exchange, this is just crushing. The continuation is something like, I can trap things, and it just gets very ugly here when I can take. It's just everything is a mess, right? Even with all these exchanges, he can't get off the board, and I'm just taking things, and it's just over. But he resigned before that, just knight g6, and I tied for first. I got some prize money. Felt pretty good this tournament. I felt I was back, and I'm going to try to get into better tournament form. This was May of 2024. I want to try and play a tournament a month if I can. Most tournaments in Seattle are either in the Seattle area or on the east side, Bellevue, Redmond. I live in Bellevue, Redmond. I'd prefer that. And that's what I'm going to try and do in the future. So I will report back on more games, not just from tournaments, but interesting ones I play online. Please give me your comments and feedback in the comments section. I'm happy to listen. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and I look forward to chatting with you in another video. Thanks.